How did Paul and Barnabas round out their first missionary journey? Should we always expect both challenges and accomplishments on any similar mission trip? Let's look at Acts 14. What happened as Paul and Barnabas preached in Iconium, modern-day Konya, Turkey? Now it happened in Iconium that they went together to the synagogue of the Jews, and so spoke that a great multitude both of the Jews and of the Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against the brethren. Therefore they stayed there a long time, speaking boldly in the Lord, who was bearing witness to the word of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided. Part sided with the Jews and part with the apostles. And when a violent attempt was made by both the Gentiles and Jews with their rulers to abuse and stone them, they became aware of it and fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and to the surrounding region, and they were preaching the gospel there. What happened after Paul healed a man in Lystra, near the present-day village of Kilistra, Turkey? While they were at Lystra, Paul and Barnabas came upon a man with crippled feet. He'd been that way from birth, so he'd never walked. He was sitting and listening as Paul preached, looking straight at him. Paul realized he had faith to be healed, so Paul called to him in a loud voice, "Stand up!" And the man jumped to his feet and started walking. When the crowd saw what Paul had done, they shouted in their local dialect, "These men are gods in human form." They decided that Barnabas was the Greek god Zeus and that Paul was Hermes, since he was the chief speaker. Now the temple of Zeus was located just outside the town, so the priest of the temple and the crowd brought bulls and wreaths of flowers to the town gates, and they prepared to offer sacrifices to the apostles. Why did the people stone Paul and drag him out of the city? But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their clothes and sprang into the multitude, crying out, "Men, why are you doing these things? We also are men of the same nature as you, and bring you good news, that you should turn from these vain things to the living God, who made the sky, the earth, the sea, and all that's in them, who in the generations gone by allowed all the nations to walk in their own ways. Yet he didn't leave himself without witness, in that he did good and gave you rains from the sky and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness." Even saying these things, they hardly stopped the multitude from making a sacrifice to them. But some Jews from Antioch and Iconium came there, and having persuaded the multitudes, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing that he was dead. But as the disciples stood around him, he rose up and entered into the city. On the next day he went out with Barnabas to Derbe. Why did Paul and Barnabas revisit the towns of Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch in Pisidia? Paul and Barnabas proclaimed the good news to the people in Derbe and made many disciples. Then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, where they strengthened the disciples and urged them to remain firm in the faith. They told them, "If we are to enter God's kingdom, we must pass through many troubles." They appointed elders for each church. With prayer and fasting, they committed these elders to the Lord, in whom they'd placed their trust. What towns finished the journey? What did the missionaries do after returning to Antioch in Syria, now Antakya in modern Turkey? Paul and Barnabas went on through Pisidia to Pamphylia, where they preached in the town of Perga. Then they went down to Italia and sailed to Antioch in Syria. It was there that they'd been placed in God's care for the work they'd now completed. After arriving in Antioch, they called the church together. They told the people what God had helped them do and how he had made it possible for the Gentiles to believe. Then they stayed there with the followers for a long time. How did Paul and Barnabas round out their first missionary journey? Should we always expect both challenges and accomplishments on any similar mission trip? You decide.